Spring is finally here. I'm starting to feel it. It's starting to get warm. I'm excited. Listen, I love to theme my makeup with the seasons. You don't have to. Of course, you can wear whatever colors you want at any time of year. Excuse me. But I've pulled some palettes out of my collection that I think give me spring feelings. Colors that I personally want to reach for at this time of year. I think a lot of pastels, a lot of soft pinks and purples, and some greens as well. But let me know what palettes you enjoy wearing at this time of year. Do you theme your makeup to the seasons? Do you not? Let me know. I will link all of the palettes that are available down below in the description box. While I'm talking about these palettes, as I pop up the swatches and close-ups, I will put the letters PR up in the corner if I received it in PR. And I have done this video a couple of times now. I am not going to repeat any palettes that I talked about last year, although I stand by those recommendations. So I will also link last year's video down below in the description box if you want even more recommendations. Let's talk about two palettes that I talked about very recently in a video. Let's get them out of the way because I've already yapped about them enough, but I do think that they're really nice for the season. So the first one is what I'm wearing on my eyes today, and that is the Nomad Fairy Tale Europe palette. I mean, look at this cover. Everything about the colors in this cover reminds me of spring. We've got those pastels, just absolutely gorgeous, soft, colorful shades. I always love Nomad's theming and their attention to detail with their packaging. We have a raised castle. It's hard to tell on camera, but really, really well done. And I would recommend this for someone that's looking for pops of color in their shimmers. If you are someone like me that really enjoys neutral mattes, but you want to throw on maybe a colorful shimmer here and there, I feel like spring is the perfect time for that. And this is the perfect palette for that as well. I was able to create more of like a warm look, which I was surprised by. I used this shade Little Mermaid all over my lid, and I used this iridescent multichrome Snow White kind of in my inner corner and wrapped it up onto my lid. I did film this look. It should be coming to short form content at some point, if it's not already. Really enjoy this. I so far really like the quality. The mattes are the good Nomad quality, mid-level pigment, blendable. I really like that there's a gradient from light to deep in the mattes. And the shimmers, there's some multi-chromes, and then there are some just standard shimmers, and they're really pretty. They're really, really pretty. Definitely a perfect spring palette, which makes sense because it is their spring release. I wanted to add this definitely to the spring palettes list. This is also another palette I talked about very recently on my channel a couple of times now, so but I really have been enjoying it a lot. And for me, another thing I really love in the spring, I don't know what it is. I really love like ethereal, pretty shimmers. I mean, I like them all the time, but for some reason, spring, I don't know if I think of like fairies in the spring, twiddling through a meadow of flowers. I don't know. These shimmers are so pretty. They are more of that like piecey, toppery type of shimmer. They're not ultra in your face, metallic shadows like some indie brands. These are more soft, but still really pretty shimmers. And the mattes in this are also really good. There are only 3 mattes in the palette, and I was expecting them to be not very pigmented, not to show up very well, but I was very surprised by the pigment level and the blendability. Quite a lot of kick up in the pan. But the shimmers are definitely the star of the show in this palette. Some of them are standard metallics, which are really just like thin, smooth standard metallics. And then they're calling the other ones glitters, but they're more like topper shades. So yeah, love this palette. I'm definitely gonna be getting a lot of use out of this spring. And by the way, everything that's on my face will be listed in the description box. I don't think I said that. All right, let's go to another indie brand. Let's talk about Bella Beauté Bar, and this is the Secret Garden palette. The whole theming of the garden, very spring-like. This is when all the flowers are starting to bloom. Everything's starting to get a little more green. This is a really nice palette if you want soft pinks, some neutrals, and also a whole bunch of greens. Because I think of green shadows when I think of spring. I really love wearing green all the time, but definitely in the spring. We have different types of greens on these bottom 2 rows. We have some more blue-leaning greens. We have some more true greens. And then these 2 rows, we have a lot of soft pinks. And then we have a really versatile row of neutrals at the top. I really enjoy the Bella Beauté Bar matte formula in particular. One of my favorite matte formulas. Very blendable, very pigmented, but easy to work with. They are stunning. And the shimmers are pretty if you like very, very in your face, shifty shimmers that are really shiny, that pretty much are the star of the show. Bella Beauté Bar is a good formula for you. Sometimes some of their shadows can be a little bit more like crumbly textured, which is not my favorite, I'll be honest with you, but when there are those smooth ones, like up here, this is a smooth one, love the smooth shimmers. So yeah, definitely a good one if you are wanting to incorporate some more greens into your spring looks. If you are a neutral girl like me, but you want more like pinky leaning neutrals, I think the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette is a really, really good one. A really good one. I love this kind of more minimalist packaging. I definitely think, at least on me, these shadows show up very pink leaning. But if you don't want to wear like pink, you know what I mean? Neutrals that lean pink. But you can, of course, create true neutral looks out of this. I love the Natasha Denona formula, especially her midi palettes have come out in the past year or two, where the mattes are just extremely easy to work with. You can really haphazardly blend these with your eyes closed, basically, and they end up looking pretty darn good. I actually think that her mattes show up a little darker on the eyes than they do in the pan, which I think is nice. It's a nice surprise for me when that happens. And her shimmer formula in these newer midi palettes has been stepped up, where she has some standard metallics, then she has more like wet effect looks that are more toppery, that give that wet effect to the eye. And then there are these more stepped up metallics that are a little more opaque, but have a little more of that sparkle particle to them, so they add that extra shine. I love this palette. Of course, you're going to get a neutral look out of this, but I think it's a little more pinky leaning, which again, pinks are definitely something that I think about for this season. And let me know, what shades do you like to wear? If you do theme your makeup to the seasons, what kind of shades do you like to wear in the spring? I'm definitely curious to know. I wanted to mention these two quads from Clionadh. I am in the middle of testing them, so I will kind of go into this with a little bit of caveat that I've only really used these, I think I've used them a total of 3 times or 2 times, but they're a quad, so I can kind of give you my initial thoughts. So these are the Garland and Garden quads. There are 2 different colorways. They don't have separate names, which I think is interesting, but there is one that is more peachy, warm toned, and then there is one that is green as well. And this is more, well, there's kind of a couple of 2 cool tone green shades, an olive shade, and then more of like a reddish shimmer. These are really pretty. I mean, of course, the whole theming is very spring with the flowers and the blossoms and all of that. And I do feel like these are really pretty different colors that you could wear for the spring. I am not the biggest fan of Clionadh's matte formula. It is quite dusty, like a lot of cake up in the pan, and if you over blend, it can start to blend away a little bit, and they can have a hard time sticking to my eye personally. Now, this is just my opinion, but yeah, I mean, they work. They definitely work. They're just not my most favorite mattes, but I will say the shimmers from Clionadh, of course, they are known for their shimmers, and these shimmers are absolutely beautiful. They are really, really pretty. Now, none of these are multi-chromes or anything. They're just standard shimmers, which makes these a little more affordable, but the shimmers are just very, very beautiful, shiny, shimmery. I would say like pretty vibrant. They're not barely there shimmers, but they're not like thick and chunky and over the top. I've gotten some really pretty looks out of these quads. I do prefer this warmer one because I just prefer warm tones overall, but I was able to combine them to create a look. I did combine them and I filmed it, but something happened with the footage. I actually filmed like a testing new makeup video with these, and the footage, I think the sound was really bad. I had to scrap the whole video, which was a delight, as you could imagine. And then I did actually also film a short form video, I think just using, no, I combined them as well. And I had something hanging from my nose the entire video, so I didn't post it. So I've filmed twice with these, but I haven't been able to post it, but I will try again. A third time may be a charm. But I will say, if you are really into really beautiful shimmers, you don't want any kind of multi-chrome or shifty shadows, Clionadh has a really beautiful set of shimmers in these, and the mattes are good. The mattes are good. They're just not like my ultimate favorite, but they're definitely giving me spring. And I think actually what I will probably do with these is I will pop out the mattes and pop into shimmers that I maybe want to travel with and use this as a quad, because the actual like packaging feels very sturdy, but just want to let you know about those. Now, this palette is an interesting pick. And when this came out at holiday time, I called it. I said, this is gonna be a great palette for the spring. And I stand by that. And listen, I think it's important to be able to repurpose seasonal palettes that are released for Christmas time or for Halloween and be able to use them not just in that season. In my opinion, I think that makes it way more valuable. And for me, the Rosy Jingle palette from Odin's Eye, this is a perfect springtime palette if you want to infuse pops of color into your look. So this was their holiday release for 2024. A lot of people said, I don't really see how this goes with holiday, and I can see that, but I also can see how this can be used for springtime. The Odin's Eye formula is really good. The mattes are pigmented, blendable, a little harder pressed in the pan, so they're not causing a ton of fallout. And the shimmers are really pretty. I love these new marbled shades that they're doing. I know maybe some people don't love them, but this one is just like a beautiful iridescent multi-chrome. Look at that. You can just tap it all over your lid, use it for your inner corner, you can layer it. I've been really enjoying that formula that they've been incorporating in a lot of their palettes recently. And their shimmer formula, they have, in my opinion, a few different shimmer formulas. Smooth shimmers, like these. This one is a little more textured. I find that these aren't overly textured though, so I can appreciate that. I just wanted to showcase this one, knowing that it was a holiday palette, but just maybe re-inspiring you if you did pick this up. You could pull it out for the spring season. I think it works perfectly. I actually think it even works better for spring than it does for wintertime, for my preference. This one I didn't mention last year, even though it came out last year. I think I filmed my spring palettes video before this palette came out, but I definitely wanted to mention it this year. This is the Unearthly Cosmetics Spring Magic palette. I mean, how much more spring can you get? This is the perfect spring palette if you like colors, but you also want some neutrals as well. Because there are a handful of neutral shadows here, you can create a neutral look, but we've got a row of blues, we've got some soft peachy pinks, and we have some greens. If you've been here before, you know I love the Unearthly Cosmetics formula. The mattes are really, really pigmented, I would say. They're not like Natasha Denona where you can haphazardly blend them and, you know, with your eyes closed. They do require, I think, a little more precision, but the payoff is really quick. Like you're able to get that pigment very quickly. You don't have to build and build and build. Their shimmer formula is one of my absolute favorite shimmer formulas. Very smooth, very shiny, very eye-catching. They are that perfect in between of like not chunky textured, not like crumbly or like pressed glitter on your eye, but they're not like barely there shimmers either. They're just like that perfect, just gorgeous shimmer formula. I like when they have light to deep in the mattes. They have a matte white, which I love in any palette because I love a matte inner corner highlight. I can layer that onto another shadow to create like a pastel for my inner corner. But we also have like an iridescent duochrome right here. A lot of really fun shimmers. A lot of these are shifty shimmers. I mean, they really did a beautiful job of creating a beautiful spring palette. I mean, it's called Spring Magic, so it's pretty spot on for spring. And then the last palette I wanted to mention is one that I think is quite opposite in formula to this. If you're wanting something a little softer overall, I would recommend, well, actually this isn't available anymore, but if you purchased it, maybe pull it out for this season. This is the Bay Botanical palette. And by the way, I'm also creating this video not for you to go out and buy new stuff, but maybe you have something in your collection that is similar, or if you don't already have one of these exact palettes, something similar to one of these palettes that you could be like, oh, I have something that looks like that. Let me pull it out for the spring. That's really my intention here. My only caveat with this is I don't really love the mattes in this palette. I think the shimmers are beautiful. Really, really smooth, really pretty shimmers, and the mattes are just a little hard pressed in the pan, and a couple of the more pastel mattes don't really show up very well on me. So just keep that in mind. But if you want a palette with mattes that aren't very pigmented, you want something that's very lightly pigmented, because some people do, this is a really good palette for that. I just love this color story. When they showed this color story, I was like, wow, that is one of the most unique color stories I've seen in a while. It's colorful, but it's muted colors. And yeah, I mean, I love the shimmer formula from Beauty Bay. I think it's one of the best for the price point. This was like a $20 palette. which is great. One thing about Beauty Bay that I don't love is that as soon as the palette sells out, they don't ever bring a palette back. So their stuff is very limited edition. So just keep that in mind. Unfortunately, I don't believe this is available anymore, but I'm definitely thinking about pulling this one out for the season because it's a perfect color story for that, in my opinion. All right, and that is it for this spring palettes video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below letting me know either your thoughts about these palettes, if you have them, if you've wanted them, if you skipped on them, or leave me 1 or 2 palettes that you think are perfect for the springtime that maybe I didn't mention or that I did mention. Whatever it is you want to let me know down in the comments. I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in another video. Bye.